The first few weeks after losing my job were emotionally draining. Everything felt uncertain and heavy. Thankfully, my wife, Ellen, was able to increase her hours at work and move from part-time to full-time, while I picked up a few contract document review jobs that I could handle from home. What was hardest wasn't the change in income. It was the shift in our roles. Without ever really saying it out loud, Ellen made it clear she expected me to take over most of the housework. The laundry, the cleaning, the day-to-day upkeep that had once been her responsibility now fell to me. At the beginning, it felt overwhelming. Learning all the routines and, more importantly, learning to meet her standards was intimidating. But over time, I adjusted. Eventually, I became efficient, even confident in managing the household that left stretches of quiet time during the day. Not always. Sometimes errands, meals, and cleaning filled every hour. But there were enough empty moments that I began searching for something to occupy them. That quiet space stirred memories from my teenage years. Back then, I had often been alone, shy around girls, and unsure how to express my curiosity about them. I found myself drawn to the soft, delicate fabrics in my older sister's wardrobe. What began as simple fascination gradually turned into secretly trying on her lingerie, panties, bras, stockings, even shapewear. The textures, satin, lace, smooth stretch fabrics, and the sense of secrecy made a deep impression on me. Even after I grew older, dated, and left those habits behind, the memory of that feeling never fully disappeared. Now living in a role that felt traditionally feminine within our relationship, those impulses resurfaced. I started small, wearing lingerie beneath my everyday clothes while doing chores. Even though my wife and I were similar in build, I preferred having my own things rather than borrowing hers. So I bought a few pieces that matched what I'd always imagined. Soft, fitted, carefully chosen. Before long, wearing them became something I genuinely enjoyed. Since I handled all the laundry and cleaning, keeping them hidden and maintained was easy. Gradually, my interest expanded beyond just my own things. I found myself drawn to certain items in Ellen's wardrobe, especially the ones that blended masculine structure with feminine style. Pieces that felt familiar yet different at the same time. Jean shorts, fitted pants, and soft knit tops were the items that fascinated me most. They were close enough to men's clothing that no one would notice at a glance, but the differences were there for anyone paying attention. The shorter cut of the legs, the small side slits, the decorative stitching on the pockets, little details that quietly marked them as feminine. Wearing my delicate under layers beneath those clothes became my private excitement. Whether I was running errands or working in the yard, I carried that hidden secret with me, a quiet sense of daring with almost no risk of discovery. At least that's what I believed. Everything changed. One afternoon, I was outside pulling weeds near the mailbox, dressed in a loose oversized top, my wife's pale blue shorts, and a matching peach cold set underneath. I hadn't noticed anyone approaching until suddenly I looked up and found myself face to face with 3 of the neighbor wives, Debbie, Christy, and Robin. They were neatly dressed, carrying trays of snacks, clearly headed somewhere together. There was no time to slip back inside, so I tried to act natural and kept working. Debbie wasn't about to let me blend into the scenery. With her usual cheerful tone, she called out, "Mike, you're always working out here. Your yard looks wonderful, but you can't work all day. Come with us to Brenda's. We're having a little neighborhood get-together, just lunch and conversation. Your wife used to come all the time. We'd really love you to join us." I froze for a moment, unsure what to say. Ellen had mentioned those lunches before. As far as I knew, they were strictly for the neighborhood wives. She always said they were fun, good food, easy conversation, but going would feel like admitting I'd stepped fully into the role of housewife myself. I searched for an excuse and found nothing. Robin laughed lightly. "Don't worry about dressing up. We just like having a reason to wear something nicer than our chore clothes." Still blanking on a polite refusal, I bought myself a little time. "All right, just let me wash up first." "I'll come down in a few minutes." They seemed satisfied and continued on toward Brenda's house while I went inside. For a moment, I considered simply not going, but I knew them well enough to realize they'd notice, and they'd be hurt if they thought I'd made an excuse just to avoid them. I didn't want tension with the neighbors, so I changed quickly. I swapped out of my wife's shorts and removed the bra. Being surrounded by so many women made me nervous enough already, and I knew how observant they could be. A man might overlook small clothing details, but women rarely did. Given enough time, they'd surely notice subtle feminine tailoring or the faint outline of straps beneath my shirt. Once I was ready, I walked over to Brenda's house. I hadn't expected such a crowd. Nearly every woman in the neighborhood was there, including several I barely knew, all gathered together in easy conversation. The moment I stepped in, I realized I was very much the exception in the room. Lindsay, Renee, and Trisha were there, too. What surprised me most, though, wasn't who attended. It was how much I genuinely enjoyed myself. Between the delicious food, the easy gossip about neighborhood happenings, and long conversations about fashion trends, the afternoon was unexpectedly wonderful. The women treated me like one of their own, and before the gathering ended, several of them warmly invited me to come again the following week. I hesitated for a moment, wondering what this might mean for the masculine image I still tried to maintain in the outside world. But the truth was, I'd had such a good time that I agreed without much resistance. As everyone began gathering their things to leave, I overheard Debbie reminding Brenda that it was her turn to help with cleanup. Curious, I asked what she meant. Debbie explained that while the lunches were always held at Brenda's house, the rest of the group rotated cleanup duties so Brenda wouldn't have to manage everything alone. Since I hadn't brought a dish and already felt like I'd gotten off easy, I offered to stay and help. Brenda gladly accepted, and I spent the next while washing dishes, sweeping, and mopping under her cheerful direction. She complimented my thoroughness, joking that I did surprisingly good work for a man, and remarked that it was a shame my turn to help wouldn't come around again for quite some time. Sensing an opportunity, I suggested a simple arrangement since cooking wasn't really my strength. Perhaps I could handle cleanup every week as my regular contribution. Brenda was delighted. She admitted that some of the others weren't always enthusiastic helpers, especially when they struggled to keep up with their own homes. The agreement was made on the spot. From then on, I found myself eagerly anticipating the weekly lunches. They became a space where I could quietly explore interests I'd never really shared before. Casual conversation, fashion talk, and the comfortable intimacy of social time that felt distinctly feminine. At first, the women still treated me like the lone man in the group, but as I joined more fully in their conversations and routines, that distinction gradually faded. Doing all the cleanup certainly helped my standing too. Before long, they seemed to view me simply as another housewife among them. In the beginning, I kept my private wardrobe choices minimal, just undergarments beneath ordinary clothes. But little by little, I added more. First hosiery, then shaping garments, eventually a bra or chamisole carefully layered beneath sweaters or jackets. The first time I wore a full combination to one of the lunches, my nerves were almost unbearable, but within weeks, it felt completely natural. Gradually, I began incorporating more tailored pieces from my wife's wardrobe. Trousers, sweaters, blouses with subtle feminine styling. The quiet thrill of sharing these social moments surrounded by women while dressed in ways that reflected that same atmosphere was deeply exhilarating. Of course, I was always cautious. Dark hosiery that could pass for socks, sweaters without gaps that might reveal outlines underneath, smooth layers that wouldn't show through tailored fabric. Over time, those precautions became second nature. If anyone noticed anything unusual, they never mentioned it. My appearance changed subtly, too. I let my hair grow longer, added soft blonde highlights, kept my nails carefully manicured. Nothing dramatic, just small refinements that leaned slightly more towards softness and polish. Neither my wife nor the neighbors ever commented. Feeling increasingly confident, I decided to pursue something I'd quietly wanted for a long time, a tailored women's suit with coordinating pieces. After several unsuccessful searches, I finally spotted exactly what I'd imagined during a quick shopping trip. It was charcoal gray with a fine pinstripe, elegant, structured, and beautifully made. The long double-breasted jacket fell nearly to mid-thigh. The matching trousers were cut with unmistakable feminine tailoring featuring a rear zipper and a sleek beltless waist. A skirt and vest were part of the set as well, but I focused only on the jacket and pants. I took a chance and bought it. When I tried it on at home, I was amazed. The fit was perfect. The jacket's length concealed the back closure completely, even when seated. It felt like the ideal step forward for the lunch and gatherings. I spent the following weeks assembling the right finishing touches. Coordinated hosiery, matching underlayers, polished loafers with a low heel, and a soft silk top that completed the look. Altogether, it was more refined and feminine than anything I'd worn before, yet still just balanced enough to feel discreet. The structured lines could almost pass for modern tailored men's wear at a glance. All I needed now was the right occasion and the courage to wear it. That opportunity arrived sooner than expected. One of the women had been honored by the town for her volunteer work at a local thrift shop, and Brenda proposed hosting a special luncheon in her honor. This time, everything would be a little more formal. Catered food, nicer outfits, a celebration worthy of recognition. As the plans came together, I found myself speaking up, mentioning that I might have something special to wear for the occasion. I had recently bought a new suit, one with far more style and flair than anything typically found in men's fashion. My hope was that its bold tailoring would give me just enough cover for what felt like my most daring step, yet into a more feminine presentation. On the morning of the luncheon, I went over to Brenda's house early to help her get everything ready. We worked quickly, and within an hour, the rooms were set, the tables arranged, and everything prepared for the caterer's arrival. After making sure she didn't need anything else, I told her I'd return about an hour before guests arrived to help with the final touches. Then I hurried home to get ready. I started with a long hot bath using silky bath salts that left my skin feeling smooth and warm. Afterward, I dusted on a lightly scented powder. Just enough fragrance to be noticed if someone stood close, but subtle enough not to draw attention. Dressing came next, followed by carefully curling my hair. I paused, wishing I could go further. A touch of lipstick, a hint of mascara, a soft sweep of blush, but that would have been too much to risk outside my home. When I finally stood in front of the mirror, fully dressed, I hesitated. My reflection filled me with both excitement and nerves, like standing in line for a towering roller coaster. The thrill was irresistible, but the anticipation made my heart race. At last, I closed my eyes, took a breath, and stepped outside. My pulse pounded all the way down the street as I walked to Brenda's house. When I knocked, she called for me to come in. She was upstairs getting dressed. Not unusual since I'd helped her prepare so many of these gatherings before. She always seemed to wait until the very last moment to choose an outfit, often torn between too many options. The catered food had already been delivered, so I began arranging the dishes and checking details, straightening table settings, adjusting flower arrangements, making sure everything looked just right. I wasn't surprised when Brenda called down, asking me to come upstairs and help her decide between two outfits. I went up to her bedroom and froze. She stood there holding two choices. In one hand was a leopard print pants suit I recognized. In the other was a vest and short skirt I had never seen before. But the moment I looked closer, my stomach dropped. They were unmistakably part of the same collection as my suit, matching pieces designed to coordinate with the very jacket and trousers I was wearing. For a moment, I couldn't move. My chest tightened, and I felt as if my heart might pound straight through my ribs. Brenda was speaking mid-sentence when she looked up and really saw me. Her eyes widened, then sparkled with delight. "Michael, that outfit is wonderful," she said warmly. "You look fantastic. And those accessories, perfect choices. Where did you find that jacket? I wanted one to go with this skirt, but they didn't have my size. I love how long it is. It falls so beautifully. What size is yours?" My mouth went dry. I barely managed to whisper where I'd bought it and the size. Brenda's smile slowly widened. The kind of knowing smile that made my pulse race even faster. She looked utterly pleased, like someone who had just discovered a very interesting secret and intended to enjoy every moment of it. She stepped closer, studying me with open curiosity. "I thought you might be smaller than me," she said thoughtfully. "For that style of jacket, I'd need a 14 or maybe even a 16, though I suppose I'm a little fuller on top than you are." She laughed lightly, then tilted her head. "Do you wear an 11 to 12 in skirts too?" When I admitted that I did, she looked positively delighted, not just by the size, but by what it implied. "That's exactly what I wear in pants and skirts," she said. "Most women carry more through the hips than the bust, but not me. It's nice to meet someone built the same way. Shopping can be such a challenge." Then, without hesitation, she added, "Would you be a dear and let me see how my skirt looks with that jacket? If it works as well as I think it will, I'll have to go buy one myself." My stomach tightened. The situation was spiraling faster than I could think. The last thing I wanted was to remove my trousers and reveal what I was wearing underneath, but Brenda didn't seem like someone who easily accepted refusal. I tried to brush it off politely, murmuring that I was sure the combination would look wonderful on her without needing to see it on me. She barely acknowledged my protest. Her eyes had already dropped to my legs as if assessing the look in her mind. "Oh, don't be silly," she said brightly. "It'll only take a moment. Just slip off your pants. You'll need different shoes, too. What size do you wear? And those are hosiery, not socks, right?" Quietly, I admitted she was correct and that my shoe size was a men's 8. That seemed to please her even more. "I thought you had small feet. I have a lovely pair of gray pumps that should fit perfectly. They'll look wonderful with your outfit." As she disappeared into the closet, I made a quick decision. If I moved fast, maybe I could change before she returned. Skirt on, trousers off, and everything else still hidden. Unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough. I had just pulled off my pants and began stepping into the skirt when Brenda emerged again. She paused, then smiled in amused appreciation. "Oh, that's Clear's throat. A beautiful shade," she said warmly, nodding toward what I'd hoped would remain unseen. "It works perfectly with your hosiery. The rest of us had wondered why your trousers always looked so smooth in front. We assumed you were simply modestly built. Now it all makes sense." Her tone was light, curious rather than judgmental. "Let me guess, you have matching pieces underneath as well." My quiet confirmation only seemed to delight her further. She showered me with cheerful compliments as I finished adjusting the skirt and slipped on the shoes she'd brought. They fit easily. After I walked a few steps and turned for her inspection, she clapped her hands once, satisfied. "Yes, I definitely need that jacket to go with my skirt," she declared. Then, just as casually, as if nothing unusual had happened, she sent me back downstairs to finish arranging the last details while she dressed. A short while later, she joined me, and together we completed the preparations. Everything was ready just in time. With a playful laugh, she added, "You'd better change back into your own clothes, unless you're ready for the others to discover your little secret." Relieved, I hurried upstairs and changed immediately. The rest of the gathering passed without incident. No one seemed to notice anything unusual. When it ended, I helped Brenda clean up, then went home, my nerves still humming from the experience. She hadn't mentioned my clothing again, and I desperately hoped the whole moment would remain between us. I even resolved that future lunches would find me dressed entirely in men's clothing. No hidden layers, no risks at all. But a few days later, that hope was shattered. Brenda reached out to me again, and the surprise she had in store left me completely unprepared. A few evenings later, Brenda called me in a panic. She explained breathlessly that her husband had just informed her he was bringing important clients home for dinner the following night. Everything was falling apart at once. Her regular maid was sick. The house was in complete disarray, and she already had hair and nail appointments scheduled for the morning. There was no way she could prepare the house and organize a proper dinner in time. She needed help immediately. "Michael, please," she urged. "You clean better than anyone I know. And I'm sure you can get the meals started, too. I'll leave a list. So, everything's simple. Surely, you'd help someone who's been considerate enough to keep your little secrets." That last sentence made it clear I didn't really have a choice. I agreed and asked what time she wanted me there. Just as I was about to hang up, she added one more request in a tone that made my stomach drop. She wanted me to wear matching lingerie, preferably black lace, dark stockings, too. She said she'd provide shoes and something appropriate for cleaning. Then, almost casually, she asked me to shave arms, chest, legs so I'd look nicer. I was stunned.